Alright, disclaimer, I did do one of these guys in 25 minutes. However, I did the base as well as the undercoat ahead of time, so I didn't count that into the time. That being said, this undercoat is extremely important to this process, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now, when you're prepping your speed painting, you definitely want to have your palette prepared with every single paint you're going to want to use. That way, you don't have to fuss around with bottles or anything, and you can just make yourself really fast. You also may notice there's not a lot of colors. I tried to keep the palette very simple so that we can also increase time by not using a lot of different colors. So let's talk undercoat, and I've started this orc, and here I want you to look at the undercoat and how it looks underneath the very base coat of this skin tone. The undercoat is Blood Red Sky by Tooth & Coats, and it really creates an impact under these green tones and creates a great looking shadow. So as you're painting the color, you definitely want to leave that undercoat behind as your shadows. This saves you a ton of time creating shadows in the future, so you don't have to use like a shade or anything. And the impact is huge, and it works for every single element of this model, which makes it even more efficient. So that undercoat is so important. And it, along with the sketching we're going to be doing later on, is really what sets us up for going fast. And for this model that I'm showing you paint, I'm actually not going fast. I'm going at a relatively leisurely pace, just to kind of show you the effect of the undercoat. And simple layering really takes the model and adds a lot of definition to it combined with that undercoat. And for this, we're going to be doing a lot of sketching. So we're going to go really fast, really messy, but it's all going to work out in the end because of the layers that we're making and the contrast that we've built. And I haven't really been talking about the colors I'm using because I really wanted to stress the importance of using that undercoat along with sketching to get really fast. But this is one of the 3 skin tones I'm going to be using for this unit. And it's going to be built with Antiquity Green, Emerald Green, and Ice Yellow, all by Tooth & Coats. That base layer was Antiquity Green. It gave it that nice blue hue. I added that Emerald Green to add a little bit more greenness to it, and then the Ice Yellow to brighten everything up. And in these 2 steps, you can really see how I'm using that messy sort of sketchy style and how it just works. It doesn't have to be a nice blend to look good. The sketchiness actually brings in a lot of character to these models. And I think we have the amazingness of these orc sculpts to really thank for this. And like, even though my sketching here is a mess, it really is, if you look at it, it looks good, but it's still a mess, and that's okay. These are troops, they're boys, they can be. Next, we're going to move on to the metallics, and this absolutely shows you how you can get instant results just by sketching. The undercoat provides our shadows, and then I just sketch on our metallic color, which is Old Brown Metal by Tooth & Coats, and I'm sorry that's stuck behind a paint set because it really is one of my favorite metal colors now. And I'm literally just slapping this on. It is a very quick sketch. And once that's down, and it took no time at all, I'm going to clean out my brush. And really quickly, I come in with my highlight color, which is Tooth & Coats Surcoat Silver. And I'm sketching it on almost as haphazardly as before. I'm just doing a lot less. I'm making sure to hit areas that light will hit itself, and it's really making an impact just through the contrast we're building. And this axe looks great, and it took me less than a minute to paint it. We're going to move on to the leather straps, and once again, that undercoat is providing our perfect shadow. We're going to do a base color with a red brown, such as Doombull Brown or Boarhide from Tooth & Coats, and you build it along the edges. And then once you're done with that, we can introduce Parasite Brown by Vallejo Game Color. And this kind of trio is one of my perfect ways of making a great looking leather. They create amazing looking leather straps with very little work. Just sketch it, add some texture, and it's going to look fantastic. For my white shirts, I'm going to go in with Griffin Claw by Tooth & Coats. And I'm really going to go hard in the texture with this. And that undercoat is still once again doing a huge amount of work just by existing and giving us our easy shadows. And to get that texture, I'm just doing some pretty heavy, scratchy lines and doing some stippling as well to kind of build it all together. And if your paint is at the right consistency, it'll dry pretty quick, but if it's not, go ahead and work on other areas while you're waiting for it to dry. But if it's good to go, just add an off-white color to your previous color and then start doing the same thing. Sketch, get in there, make texture, make it fast. Make sure you're doing your highlighting in a way that you think about volume, so where that sun is hitting will have more color. And this also helps you go fast so you don't have to do as much highlighting. It is okay to leave areas darker. And with this, we've created a really messy shirt, but it looks really visually interesting and it just works. But we don't have to sketch everything. We can go really simple on some parts too. I'm just slapping on some Tenebrous Gray on these pants here. I'm not doing a fully saturated coat, and I'm not even gonna highlight. I'm just gonna do this flat color, and the undercoat's gonna do its thing. It's gonna provide color variation so you don't have to touch it again, and we can keep it simple. And you can see how it looks dried right here. There is that reddish color from the undercoat, and it does quite a lot of work. And you can see I did the same with the leather gloves as well. So that's multiple elements just taken care of by a single coat of paint. And you can see on this boy, I did the same thing. I did do a little highlighting on his wraps just to make him look a little better, but you do not have to. Natural lighting will actually help you just kind of get a highlight on there. And that kind of thought process is perfectly acceptable for doing fast units like this. Next, I'm going to be doing some basic detailing, and for this rifle, you can see I did the same thing as I did with the axe, but for the copper, I'm going to be taking Hammered Copper by Vallejo Game, and I'm just going to apply small amounts of it. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but we're going to leave that undercoat to do its thing here. So this strong copper is great for getting some color separation to make things look even more visually interesting with very little effort. Next, we're going to move on to the red for the guns, but I also use this on the red armor because my army is a bunch of mixed fools. And for this, we're going to take Mephiston Red. It's one of the best reds out there, and we're just going to apply it relatively heavily over the entire area. We're going to leave the crevices relatively unpainted, and then we're going to move on to highlight by mixing in some Wild Rider Red to our Mephiston Red. You'll mostly hit the edges. Once again, you don't have to be super clean. They're Ork Boyz. We're good with some messiness. And following that, you can take some pure Wild Rider Red and just kind of do some dot highlights along the corners. And there's a very simple way to get your red on your armor or guns or whatever. Now we're going to move on to the yellow armor, which I chose for this boy. And for that, we're going to start with the base coat of Gizmo Fur by Tooth & Coats. And this is going to be a bit more of a darker, dingy kind of yellow rather than the yellow that I typically like, which is a much more saturated yellow. But I will admit you can get that by doing some orange wash at the end. I didn't for this guy, but it's a possibility. I then moved on to Dark Sun Yellow just to get that yellow color in there. Once again, I'm sketching it on. I'm being relatively reserved with it, letting those darker colors do a lot of work and letting the contrast really build a lot of punch. And I really started to adopt this kind of style using this undercoat from my Trench Crusade painting. And it's been great there because that undercoat and sketchy look can really help lend itself to a grim, dark looking paint scheme. Now that is a little bit of a difference from my orcs, which are usually very saturated, and you can add more saturation just by painting on the same color and adding a second coat. And that just quickly adds boldness, and I did it for this yellow here. And that is a bit slower. Here I'm highlighting with Yellow Flame, also by Tooth & Coats. And once again, with these final highlights, I'm not adding a whole lot, and we're letting the contrast do all the heavy lifting. And with everything I've shown you, this guy is just done. He is done. You can see how striking and visually interesting he looks due to that sketchy style. For this backpack thing, I left it mostly brown without highlights, just to kind of separate it. But he's done. He gets to join my other lovely speed painted orcs. Now I'm going to move on to show you how to do the other skin tones as well as the other armor colors. So we're not done. We've got quite a bit more to cover. I'm going to quickly show you how I do the mouse just because it's a very easy formula. So I'm going to get in there with some Screamer Pink and just coat the whole thing, teeth included. And here I'm not even using the undercoat. We're going to paint the teeth with the exact same white color that I used for the base of the shirt, the Griffin Claw. And once again, I'm not going fast for this. I'm going slow just for the sake of the tutorial. But at the very end, I will have a quick speed paint video. Once that's all dried, you'll take some Agrax Earthshade and you're just going to cover the entirety of the mouth. All the gums, all the teeth, all of it. And then once this is dry and I don't show it, you can just reapply some of that Screamer Pink on like the tongue and then redo the teeth with that white. But for the skin tone of the paler orc, we're going to be using Gung Ho Green by Tooth & Coats. Now with this color, we actually utilize the undercoat a little bit less. So you're going to do a bit more of a full saturated coat with this. The undercoat still does great work with your shadows, but if you leave too much, it actually looks kind of funny. Following that base color, you're going to take Elysian Green and mix it in with your Gung Ho Green and do some highlighting with that. And you don't have to do a whole ton of highlighting. Once again, you can sketch it, make it very fast, and it will be very effective. You can see here how I brought up the brightness of the face as well as this hand. You can see it compared to the shoulder, which is just the base color. So it is a nice noticeable difference. After that, I added in some ice yellow to bring up the highlight a bit more, and I will admit I brought it up a bit too much for this guy. This skin tone is definitely a bit difficult to get right, but it looks really good when you do get it right. But if you do go too hard, you can actually just kind of mix a bit less of that ice yellow in and then kind of re-go over it to blend it in a bit more. And here I kind of compare the two that I have completed. And the right one has a bit more of a nicely blended face, but that only matters really for the face. As you can see where I'm pointing out in the arm, it's a rough blend. It's not even a blend, it's just a sketch. And yet it works because the values are right. And that's just kind of another pro tip is focus your attention on the face. That's what people are going to be looking at, so make the face look nicer and everything else can be a little bit less nice and people won't even notice. For the lips, nose, and whatever fleshy bits you want, you can just add in some flesh tone to your green and apply it to those parts. And then after that, you can just highlight with that pure skin tone and it'll give it a nice little punch. And once again, that just creates some more visual interest to make it look more cool and appealing. And you can see over here, I added those rougher blends like I mentioned a little bit earlier. I cleaned up the face, brought those highlights down a little bit, and now he matches quite well with this other guy. And I really dig this skin tone. Starting on the blue armor, we're going to take Abyss Blue by 2 thin coats. We are going to be utilizing that undercoat, so make sure you leave plenty of it behind as you sketch this on. Following that, we'll take Calidor Sky by Warhammer Color, mix it in with that Abyss Blue and just highlight a bit, sketch it on, add a bit less, and those tones will make a natural blend. Following that, take pure Calidor Sky, get those edges, get a little bit of that top, sketch in a little bit to make that texture, and it'll look great. And it's a very fast, great looking blue armor. Another way to add some visual interest is to do all your check marks and your triangles and all that fun stuff that Ork armor has on it. I'm using the same color as I used for the teeth as well as the shirt, once again keeping our palette simple to make things faster. And these symbols don't even have to be neat. You can be messy about it, you can correct it as you need to, you can keep it simple and it will help the mini. And once again, I just add that off-white to highlight this as well. Although I will admit I am kind of interested in those stamp products you've probably seen advertised on social media. I might check them out. And like I said, if you need to, you can just clean it up with some blue, clean it up with some white, whatever. And even if it looks messy, if we pull back, it'll look good. These minis are not made to be looked close at. They're made for your army, so it's okay not to have some amazing looking details if it looks good enough. So this guy is done, and I really want to point out the volumetric nature of how I've painted these. So up here you can see that I have a saturated strong white, and down here it's just darker because I painted less of those white colors there. This was done with no glazing, no blending, just sketching in those colors. And that really goes to show how simple layering can create huge results very, very fast. And you can see it on all the boys. As I go higher on the shoulder pad, it gets brighter, the lower area is darker just from sketching those values in. You could also see it in the shirt, and so on and so on. And these are really the biggest points that I want to show. So here's some speed painting at 10 times the speed while I rant on. The undercoat is huge for this speed painting. You have to do it. It's great in the red because the orc green skin clashes well with it. Sketch, be messy, be fast. It'll look good even if it looks bad initially. But you can't do this with thick paint. You have to find the right consistency, and that is difficult. I will admit I can paint this fast this way because I am experienced. And finally, think about the volumes of your painting and how you're highlighting. But with all that said and done, I hope you loved the video. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll catch you in the next one.